Was 911 an inside job? Back on September 11, 2001, after the World Trade Towers were hit, I knew something wasn't right with the TV news reporting. How could the most powerful nation on earth, with the best military, allow two commercial airlines to crash into such prominent structures in a major financial district like New York without first being blown out of the sky? One perhaps might go under radar, but two? Then I heard one news reporter say that what he was witnessing when one of the towers collapsed reminded him of the controlled demolitions he had seen before and how the tower buildings came down in a similar fashion. I began researching and thinking much about this most significant event. And later I wrote a report entitled "The Day That Forever Changed the World" and sent it to my email list. Perhaps at some future date I'll post it here for you readers to peruse. In retrospect, there's no doubt in my mind that 911 was a false flag event to start the so-called war on terror. What we have is not a war on terror, but in reality a war on your freedoms and liberties under the disguise of a war on terror. Don't be fooled. These freedoms include both political and economic, and no doubt will include religious as well. If there really is a war on terror, then who is the enemy that the American government is trying to alert you to? Perhaps guys like me, because I'm passionate about preaching Christ. And didn't he say, "I am the way, the truth, and the life"? Wow, that's pretty narrow-minded and bigoted, isn't it? That's considered politically incorrect and, of course, very intolerant of other religious viewpoints. Maybe you or I could be branded as terrorists from our government because we have a missing finger, or we prefer to deal in cash instead of credit cards and checks, or we have more than a few weeks of food stored up. The ridiculous reasons for these ridiculous reasons have actually been criticized by a man of outstanding moral character and a retired doctor who understands where America is headed, and he doesn't like it. His name is Ron Paul, and he just happened to run for President of the United States. Well, will Ron Paul win? This piece was written before the election, and I said, I don't think so, because that's about the only man who believes in voting against any bill that is unconstitutional. He's opposed to these foreign wars by our warmongering Washington bureaucrats in D.C., that is the District of Criminals. The only problem is Ron Paul isn't a globalist. He's not part of the shadow government seeking to establish a new world order and to destroy American sovereignty and eliminate the Bill of Rights. If he were elected, I think he'd be assassinated like John Kennedy. What we need are many more men like Ron Paul to fight the inane laws in Congress which seek to destroy our health, economic and political and religious freedom, which we American Christians have come to love and unfortunately take for granted. George Bush, the darling of the conservatives, deceived the right-wing fundamentalists and others in the Christian community into thinking he was really a Christian. I almost want to call these people stupid if it weren't for my gracious spirit. Certainly many intelligent people were deceived. It's not always about intelligence. I used to do sleight of hand magic, and even intelligent people do not always understand the deception that takes place right under their nose. Look, here's a coin. Watch it disappear. It was over here. Now how did it end up over here? It's a matter of discernment. Christians must be wise and discerning people. Politicians use misdirection and sleight of hand to deceive us. They are pawns or tools in the hands of Satan, our adversary the devil, who walks about seeking whom he may devour. Most major news media today are controlled by the corporations, which in turn control Washington, D.C. If you know this, then you should not be getting most of your news from mainstream TV media and the magazines like Time or U.S. News and World Report. Time magazine for a long time was owned by Henry Luce, a known communist. But if you look in Wikipedia, you'll find the lie that Luce was anti-communist. Henry Luce said, and I quote, "By any Marxian pattern of how classes behave, the upper class should be for you, and the lower classes should be against you. How do you explain that?" Unquote. In answering Luce's question, a European guest at the meeting who Chambers calls Mentana said to Luce, quote, "You don't understand the class structure of American society, or you would not ask such a question. In the United States, the working class are Democrats, the middle class are Republicans, and the upper class are communists," unquote. This very revealing answer to Luce many years ago explains why so many wealthy and successful people in our business, entertainment industry, and government are liberal leftists, that is, communists. Secondly, I would like to point out a few goals and objectives of the international communist conspiracy when overthrowing an enemy nation. As you read these goals and listen to them and objectives, consider how many of these have been accomplished in our nation today. A few goals are: A. Corrupt the morals of the young and get them away from religion by eliminating their belief in God. Make them superficial and destroy their ruggedness. B. Get control of all means of publicity, such as radio, TV, and all print publications, and use them to 1. Get people's minds off the government by focusing their attention on athletics, sexy books and plays, and other trivialities. This fits today's TV program to a T.